Welcome, Sandman Nation. I'm Nate. He's Brandon, and we are the St. Louis Syndicate. Man, it's been a while. We wanted to come out and shout out to you guys in Sandman Nation. I think we've wrapped up the Super Bowl. We have started thinking about baseball and thinking about the draft, and a lot of you are way deep in on your golf plays, probably way deeper than you should be. Um, and I know Brandon and I are spending our off time listening to what is it called, Brandon? Is it the Inner Sandman podcast or
the
I
the
think
official the
the
official pod for Sandman Nation.
yeah, I mean Eric, he names everybody every week, and he's great at the nicknames. I love that, but
Oh yeah,
I think they probably need to name their podcast just the official,
probably.
right? It kind of goes to that point, dude. If you think about it, it's going to go to that point of where these guys, they're talking about their sequels, right? How are they going to have a sequel to the Sandman podcast if they haven't got an official name?
Right, right, right,
How are they
right.
going to get sponsorships on the official drink? The official drink of Sandman Sports? Is that Sandman Sports or the Sandman podcast? I don't know. I know we're the St. Louis Syndicate, and we have an
Exactly.
official name. So,
Right.
Eric, there's your challenge. Official name, my friend. I want to hear about it in your next podcast, what that's going to be. Oh, by the way, thank you for the swag. We've got our Sandman swag on today. Loving it up.
Oh yeah.
Um, Wanted to shout that out. Brandon, what do you think about sequels? These guys, man, they spent like 40 minutes of their podcast talking about movies. A sports betting thing. They're talking about movies.
I have a hard time with sequels because they went through a good number, and look, I enjoy all of those sequels,
Yeah.
but I have a hard time putting a sequel ahead of the first in a series because that's the one where the idea of the story comes from,
Yeah.
right? Like if you don't have that first one, you can't make a great sequel, right?
Okay. That's a fair point.
Like that's where that goes to my head. Like obviously for me, I'd say probably my favorite is The Dark Knight,
Oh, yeah.
and that kind of ended up being special circumstances, right? Like that wasn't supposed to be necessarily better than the first one, but you had this situation where one actor and Heath takes all of this time to really become a character, and then tragically passes away, and it kind of dwarfs anything else that goes on in the franchise. But it's hard for me to get off of that first in the line and going, this is a really great idea that somebody had.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The guys brought up a good point when I was listening to him. Do you have to have a number for it to be a sequel? I think Pat was hung up on that. He's like, you gotta have a number.
I,
And then
I,
he
I,
wanted to do the pain voice the whole time. Ooh, that pain
which
voice.
I do love the Bane voice.
That was
I
great.
wish I could do that.
Well, he
I would
should do
wear
that
out my
just for an
life.
entire podcast. I think it would be great.
Yes. Yeah, I think you gotta, or at least for me, it goes down a road of, I mean, maybe you don't need a number, but you definitely, in my mind, can't go past like three movies.
Oh, okay.
You
Yeah.
start getting into like unnumbered and like four, five, seven, 10 and you go like, this is a universe. We're talking about like, what's your favorite movie in like a universe of a story? And that is kind of a separate thing to me than just your sequel, where we're just going to throw a two on the end, or we're going to come up with a quippy little, play on words so that it's the second or the third in the movie.
Yeah.
And, for me, those are the ones that kind of stick in my mind is like true sequels.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of see it as a saga. Lord of the Rings. I think it's
Yeah.
saga. Star Wars was a saga. I can go on.
Uh-huh.
But, so I'm kind of a geek, right? Actually, The Godfather, which they talked extensively about, The Godfather 2, in my opinion, is probably better than The Godfather 1. Don't get me wrong, I love The Godfather 1. Um, but if you read the book, a lot of Godfather 2 is driven from the book that was the origin. So
For
really,
sure.
you
Yeah.
could look at Godfather 1 and Godfather 2 as the core book writing by Mario Puzo. And
Well, and that's how you get the best kind of sequels, right?
well, that's how you get good sequels. is that it's a
you know,
continuation of the story.
yeah, like when you go into, I mean, we had this, I don't know if you were a Game of Thrones person, but like that was, so good and rich from a storytelling standpoint until they ran out of book and then went like, the authors working with them to go like, here's, kind of what I'm thinking for the story. But then, it just starts wavering and coming apart. And, there were other extenuating circumstances that went along with it. But, yeah, if you can get a sequel or maybe even, and I think that's why Star Wars worked so well.
Yeah.
When we had those first three, it was like, hey, we have 6 books worth of stuff, and we're gonna jump in here in the center and and they kind of goofed up the first three when they went back to them a little bit. I still think that like they're totally serviceable movies, especially on a big screen. But like,
For sure.
those first three are definitely the best. But you had books to follow,
Yeah.
and it helps you stay on track and have like a depth of character.
Yeah. Some of these movies though, you got to watch them in a specific order. Like Star Wars, you can actually watch the Star Wars saga in a specific order, and it makes a whole lot more sense. Same thing, kind of with the Marvel universe. You can watch it in movie release, or you can watch it in timeline order of events, and it's just crazy to see the differences if you actually get your mind around it as to what's happening. But neither here nor there. Usually the third is the worst. Speaking of Godfather, that was atrocious.
Yeah. That's almost always the case there.
Oh. All right, before I go to the Super Bowl, one thing I got to shout out. I'm not sure why these guys. I mean, where was Rocky 4? I mean, that's a sequel, and it was
It is.
outstanding. And
It's
anytime
even got a number in it.
it's got a number, and anytime you beat down the Russian like that, you've got to give it props. So, yeah, I'm throwing that out there.
Yeah. No, that's a strong one, and it's deep in there.
Oh yeah,
It's not number two. Like
no,
you're getting,
you're getting
those movies are usually straight to cable sort of movies by the time you get to four.
way past Mr. T. So what? How'd you do on the Super Bowl? How'd you end up, bud?
I got shot out of a cannon into a wall.
I
I
knew that. Oh,
I got absolutely blasted. It could not have went worse. I it's to go. Here's the way the Super Bowl's probably going to go, and then to bet it, and then have the Super Bowl go that way and lose almost all your bets is a special kind of messed up. Like I spent 2 weeks going, look, either Mahomes is going to do something magic or the offensive and defensive line of Philly is going to trounce them. And then that's exactly what happened.
yeah.
And somehow they still went over. Just the dumbest. Yeah, no. How did yours go?
Well, I was okay. Yeah, I did lean on the over for my main plays. Now I know in our picks I picked under, but in my main play, so I kind of split the difference. But it wasn't great. I was heavy on the Chiefs. I was a believer, man. Clearly, I wrote an article on it for Sandman Nation about how the dynasty was going to roll, and it did not. And so I get to eat a little crow on that. That's okay. So, any of you that follow the St. Louis Syndicate know that we took it on the chin for the Super Bowl. But overall, the season was fairly successful, even though it was an odd season, right? It was a really odd season, I think, in general.
Oh,
It took a while for some of the things that we thought that were more traditional betting models to get actually take place. Kind of getting some of the contrarian plays back in alignment
oh,
towards the end of the season. So it started slow, picked up hot, and ended with a thud.
yeah. Between Lamar, or better yet, Mark Andrews,
Oh,
and
we're
Pat,
talking about Mark
I
Andrews, huh?
I look because I thought that was going to be the thing that set me back, and then yeah, just went into the Super Bowl and just you know, I at halftime I went like okay, like most of the people at my house are not super happy about this.
Right.
But I'm gonna have the under because we're just gonna sit on the ball and we're gonna kill the clock. And the second half of this game is gonna take 40 minutes total, and then they will, and then the defense for Philly finally went like, I mean, we're up 40. I guess you guys can score some. And then just destroyed the over under. Yeah, what a mess. Yeah, no. And then, Mark Andrews dropping a ball. Like the playoffs got weird.
They got
But
weird.
it was a very weird season all the way through. Every time I went like, you got to take the points. It just went the wrong way
Yeah, totally
so
agree.
many times throughout the year. And it's going to be very interesting to see as we go into next year and start looking at, when they get like the game of the year lines up, late summer and start seeing like, okay, how are these lines being adjusted?
Hmm.
Are we going to see much longer lines, to try to force some of the underdogs to win, or are we just going to assume that like that was still a small sample size, 200 75 games, and we'll assume that this just works out next year. It's
Yeah.
going to be very interesting to focus in on that and see, against power ratings where we think Vegas is trying to, hedge their bet.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see how they want to align those. The first lines that come out in whatever it is, June or July,
Yeah.
definitely will be interesting to see. I just kind of look and I worry a little bit as a fan of the Chiefs that Philadelphia kind of just exposed the root of the issue, and these teams are going to know how to attack them now. Regardless of
Sure.
Mahomes' magic, and I know you can say what you want, offensive and defensive lines, but it's a copycat league, and the schemes and the blitzes that Fangio is drawing up. You have to have the horses to be able to do it, and the Eagles do. But the teams in the AFC that have the horses will be able to do it. I think Ravens, I think Bills, I think Bengals, I think Steelers. There's some teams that, Broncos, they're going to copycat it. Outside of it being the swan song for Kelsey next year, which I think I saw he's coming out, he's going to play one more year, try to make one last run at it.
That's what it sounded like.
I think the Chiefs could be in a lot of trouble next year. And
Where do you draw the difference between, we did this, what, 4 years ago, the
Mhm,
exact same game,
mhm,
went down to Tampa. Tampa just ran straight up the middle of the offense and
mhm,
just beat Mahomes into oblivion,
mhm.
and they couldn't protect him. And then since then, they've won two Super Bowls after every other team in the league watched, well, this is how you beat him. And
True.
then,
It's a very
and
fair
then,
comment. Yeah.
and then he just ripped through, obviously we had the 1 year where they didn't make it because Cincinnati did kind of figure out the same thing. Hey, we're going up the middle here. We're going to blow their offense up, you know, and, Philly obviously
They hit him from
um,
everywhere. They hit
is
him from everywhere.
structured a lot better as a team. Like this isn't the um, Philly peaking
Mm-mm.
right at the end of the year. Hey, we got people; they should be around for a while. Like outside of injuries, everybody's kind of getting paid. It's all right. Like they should have most of their team back next year. Um, but it still leads me to believe that like uh, they're probably going to troll along the regular season, and then it's going to be four coin flips
Yeah.
again, or three coin flips if they can, you know, get the one seed. But like, you know, uh, that Philly, those Philly lines, at some point, the Chiefs are going to have to figure out if they can pair up an offensive line with what they want to spend on everybody else.
For sure. Yeah. Absolutely agree. I think we got a lot to talk about, a lot of fun. I think this season was outstanding, but for the next few weeks, we're not going to talk about football. We are still going to come to you, Sandman Nation. We are not going to be the Sandman podcast with St. Louis Syndicate, but come check us out, Brandon. We've got a full slate of reviews that we're going to do. We're going to talk. We're going to kick it off next week with some AL power rankings, where we're taking a look at baseball, where we're going to look at win loss totals, and then we'll bounce over the next week to the NL, so win totals. And then we're going to get into a couple other things. Where were you thinking we wanted to bounce to?
End of season awards,
Oh, yeah.
uh,
Rookie of the year.
playoffs,
Yeah.
win the division, win the pennant, win the World Series, maybe the fourth week, do some of that, numbers around, playoff seeding and whatnot.
Yeah, we've got a great resource at Sandman. Sam Cox is doing a lot of writing on baseball, and I've read some of his stuff, and it's pretty interesting. So I'd love to challenge some of those points right here on the St. Louis Syndicate conversation, and you and I can debate that. Maybe we'll get Sam to come on, and we can challenge him in person. We'll see.
Yeah,
Has
hopefully.
any interest to? He may not want to come on camera, but we'll definitely give our opinions about baseball, talk about Sam's opinions, and hopefully get you guys prepared for the baseball season as we continue to go through spring training. And then
Oh
we're going
yeah.
to head into football a little bit more as we're going to go through March Madness. We'll talk about some of your favorite college lineups. We'll talk about some of your Sandman pools, and we'll talk about how we think you should be aligning your bets as you head into March Madness and then into the draft. So hopefully we can get some draft ideas going. Maybe that Sandman podcast crew will want to do something and come on and hang out with the St. Louis Syndicate and talk about the NFL draft. Maybe we can run some mock drafts or something.
Yeah, I think that'd be great because there's just so much data out there, so many different, national media personalities doing these mock drafts. And there are some, especially something like this year, where there's not like a true number one guy.
Right.
There should be a lot of divergence in opinions.
Yeah.
So, hopefully a week or so out, we can kind of look at the landscape and come up with some ideas of where we think different teams are going to go, and try to set themselves up for success next year.
Yeah. Be awesome. I think it'll be cool. So we'll head into that. We'll talk draft. And then as we head into summer, we're going to take apart baseball in a little bit of a different look. We're going to align ourselves with some teams um, and make ourselves $100 betters. We're going to use pretend money. But we're going to make ourselves $100 betters and see how we do with the odds in betting baseball. And we ask you guys at Sandman Nation to follow along with us. Maybe pick your teams out. You guys can submit who you're following along with. It can be your favorite team. It can be just a random one that you think is going to do well. Like I used to like to do this with the Braves. I used to think, oh, the Braves are going to be great. And every time I do it, I lose. So it'll be kind of fun to kind of talk through and go through. And while we're doing that, then we'll start prepping for heading into the football season. And we're going to do that with a series of conversations about the best way to navigate sports betting. And we're going to talk about the 101s, right? We're going to talk about everything from bankroll management to what's an over-under to what's a parlay to how does the spread play into things, how we think about it, how some trusted resources around think about it, and just give you some ideas and flows as we head into July and then moving on beyond that, getting ready for the plays and the survivor picks and getting ready to start thinking about football again in August, which is going to be right around the corner. So we've got a
Absolutely.
jam-packed couple of months right here on the St. Louis Syndicate. I think they'll come join us, won't you?
Absolutely. It's going to be a great summer.
Yeah. We might have to talk about bourbon in there too. Maybe we'll have a cookout or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll have a
Well,
cookout, talk
bourbon.
about some bourbon.
Yeah.
We'll have to
Hmm.
challenge those Sandman guys over there to who makes the best steak and bourbon. We can go live and do some fun stuff. So, anyway,
Absolutely.
Sandman Nation, that's us. That's what we're gonna do. That's what we're looking forward to bringing you over the coming weeks. And good luck with your bets out there.
Cheers, guys.